Shocking scenes at the Gabba as North steal a win from the Bulldogs. That and more as we take a look at the round so far. And Kane, our big story does come from Queensland. It was a moment that I think all of us really wouldn't want to see on the footy field.
Here it is, yeah, Jeremy Cameron, Harris Andrews involved in a marking contest. Clearly a pretty violent hit, it must be said. Harris Andrews went off the ground, didn't feature for the rest of the game. Look, without weighing up all the graphs and intent and plugging all that information in, to me, just looking at it, it looks like a three-week incident to me. That's fair. It's going to have huge ramifications on the Giants' season. In the absence of Toby Green, Rory Lobb, they can't afford to lose Jeremy Cameron, who's second on the Coleman right now with 35 goals. So their top 8 hopes in tatters right now. Yeah,
you'd suggest he's going to be missing for a while. The reaction was swift and instant from across the footy world, including a former Lion, Tom Rockcliffe, weighing in, calling the hit shocking. Hopefully no major damage, but could be a few weeks off for Cameron. And then what about Mitch Robinson not playing? But geez, I wish I was out there. Is that appropriate, these guys weighing in?
Absolutely. I've got no issue with that whatsoever. I think we're critical of players when they wheel out the party line and play the straight bat. It's an emotional game. Rockcliffe, former teammate Andrews, clearly knows him well and had some sympathy there. No issues with that one, and also no issues with Mitch Robinson, who is clearly close to Harris Andrews and would have loved to have been playing. I think it shows the human side to AFL footballers.
Let's hear from Jeremy Cameron after the match.
Let's talk about the incident in the first quarter. When you think about it, what happened?
Yeah, so I just saw the ball coming in, and I like to play the ball really hard. It was unfortunate that I hit him in the head. Definitely didn't want to hurt him and hurt him like that, but just played the ball on the merits, and I like hitting it nice and hard.
So no malice intended?
No, definitely not. He's a great young player and playing some awesome football, so it would have been great to have him out in the ground and go against him head to head. So it was unfortunate the way it panned out. Definitely didn't want to hurt him, and I'll definitely give him a call or a message after the game, that's for sure.
Well, he didn't have to call him or message him because, as we saw, they actually caught up just after that interview. It seemed to us watching on the monitors that Harris Andrews actually sought Jeremy Cameron out for a chat. So clearly they've had words, but, there is going to be a sequel in the tribunal.
There will be. I just get the feeling Jeremy Cameron at that moment when he was interviewed didn't realise the seriousness of it, and he said that he was playing the ball. No malice, I believe that, but I'm not sure he'd seen a replay and just understood how serious and how sickening that clash was.
And the problem for Jeremy Cameron is that he has form, of course, most famously this incident involving Reece Matheson that happened in a pre-season game back in 2016. Now, for this, and we'll show you the closer replay there, he was suspended for 4 matches. So you'd suggest that there's going to be a similar outcome. He's also had a raft of other issues with the match review process over the journey, Jeremy Cameron. So, look, it will be played out on Monday and Tuesday. You'd suspect it'll be going straight to the tribunal.
I would believe so, yep. No doubt about it.
All right, let's move on here on the round so far and just quickly take a look at the Giants' month ahead. We mentioned the fact that they're going to be without him for some time, and these are all pretty important games.
Yeah, no doubt. Next week's massive. The loser probably can't make the 8. Hawks are coming with the draw that they've got. The Eagles going to be tough, although they're without a couple of guns, so you give them a chance. Tigers and then Port Adelaide. Really difficult month. It gets easier after that. You'd think they have to win 3 out of those without Cameron for the majority, you'd imagine, to make the top 8 this year.
Yeah, and that looks unlikely. OK, to Etihad Stadium next, and this was a thriller in the end, perhaps unexpectedly. Talk us through what happened as the Kangaroos stole the victory.
Oh, unfortunately, there had to be a loser. The Dogs were so good. They were so brave in the absence of some of their, stars right in the contest. That's what happened at the end. You saw Wallace kick the ball out on the full. Then it opened up for them. North Melbourne's overlap play here, and just watch Higgins get on the end of this. His work rate this year and in this piece of play with 30 seconds to go, outstanding. Trengove was forced to push up off Brown, and that left Zeeble all alone in the goal square for the win. Devastating for the Dogs. You can see the elation and the emotion with injured Jared Wade and the coach Brad Scott saying just get the numbers back, which they did. This is the vision I want to see. See, Trengove did not need to press there. That was his instinct, but he couldn't impact the contest. If you can't impact, don't press. That left the overlap. with Brown, a nice little clever toe poke. He was the best man on the ground to the captain's able to finish off the dog, and it just hasn't been there a couple of years for the Western Bulldogs, unfortunately.
Does it all go back to that out of bounds on the full? Do we blame that moment in the game, or is that not fair?
No, well, I think it's fair. I think it's an easy kick under no pressure, and perhaps that's why Mitch Wallace has struggled to find his place in the dog side. You just can't be missing kicks like that in pressure moments under no pressure, and yeah, clearly if he finds a mark with that kick, game over.
Yeah, exactly. It could have been a very different result. Now, what about the impact of Ben Brown? We've nominated him as your Saturday star.
Love the way he goes about it. He's a phenomenal athlete. The ground that he covers, his ability to mark the ball in the air and on the lead. And look, they had dogs everywhere trying to curb his influence tonight. It didn't matter. He was fighting against 2 or 3 in the air, as we're seeing here, up against 3 there, continued to mark the ball. He took 6 marks inside 50. He kicked 5 goals. 40 goals on the year now for Ben Brown. That's 5 ahead of Jeremy Cameron on the Coleman. Cameron's going to be missing, so if he stays fit, he'll win the Coleman for sure this year.
Now, this is unusual, very rare that in the middle of a Saturday afternoon when there was actually a game underway, the Adelaide Crows called a press conference to address what has been months of speculation about that pre-season training camp, and they promised to answer all the questions. They didn't quite answer all the questions, but we did get some explanation as to what went on in that pre-season camp in Queensland from the Crows coach Don Pike.
But again, I'm not going to apologise for us trying to get better. We sat here as a group at the end of the year and decided we had an opportunity to do something in a space which is a bit new and a bit fresh and maybe a bit misunderstood, and we thought that was a great opportunity. That opportunity hasn't paved its way out. Well, we move on.
You talk about laughable reports, so let's clear the air. Were any players stripped?
No. No.
Were any players blindfolded?
Well, there was blindfolding for a bus trip.
What happened on that bus trip?
Well, I'm not going to go into the detail.
Well, you don't just blindfold players on a bus trip, do you?
So part of it, again, and part of the, as I said before, part of the focus for that was around resilience and how we actually handle some adversity, handle some anxiety, handle some, and that was all part of that, almost to create that atmosphere environment of the unknown. That was one component of it.
Was the Richmond theme song played on that bus trip?
Yes.
Repeatedly?
Not repeatedly.
So once?
Once.
One of the strangest press conferences you will see in football, the upshot of it all is that this group that they'd been associated with, Collective Mind, which ran the camp, has been, well, they've parted ways. It's all over. That relationship is done. What did you make of it all?
Well, I've got some issues to come out of it and still some unanswered questions. So in regards to the camp, all I've heard is that the players were blindfolded for a brief period of time. They were played the Richmond theme song once. They were encouraged to speak about their emotions and build resiliency. They had their phones confiscated off them. What's the issue with that? Clearly there is so much more than that, because if I'm an AFL player, I have my phone taken off, I'm blindfolded, that you play the Richmond song, that's not enough for this story to be dragging on for 6 months. So there are unanswered questions with the Crows. That was the purpose of the press conference today, and they remain unanswered. Why is there still issues? Why midway through the year have you parted ways with Collective Mind if that's all that happened on this camp? That is not enough to act as drastically as what they have done today, and credit to them for fronting up, give them a tick for that. But if you're going to front up, answer the questions that we all want answered and still remain unanswered. Yeah,
and they say the reason for the timing of the press conference was it just happened to be the start of their working week. Where, in quick summation, is this football club at right now, you think?
Well, that's the scapegoat right there. So Collective Mind becomes a scapegoat of their season. I think the fans would want something to hang their hat on that. But there's a few people in the footy department breathing a sigh of relief right now, and I'd be surprised if there's not more to follow. Nothing was spoken about the fitness department and the issues they've had there, the hamstring crisis and player retention. What's going on with Mitch McGovern, what's going on with Rory Sloane and Tom Lynch heading into round 15, and 2 of their leaders of their 4-man leadership group remained unsigned.
OK, down in Tassie, while that press conference was happening, there was actually a game of Australian rules football being played, and the Gold Coast Suns started all right, and we were worried about their fourth quarter, though, because they did fall away as the game went on against Hawthorn, and then we thought it could have gone to disaster, but it didn't quite.
No, it didn't. And this was the opportunities I had late. Look at the clock in the last quarter. We're thinking, oh, here we go. Big 2-metre Peter. He's going to go back and slot that from 15 out directly in front. He misses, and we're thinking, oh, it's going to be the 5th week in a row where the Suns don't score a goal in the last quarter, but there was a free kick here and they eventually got a walking goal. They went on to kick another one in the last quarter, so they can hang their head on that, but that's about all they can hang their hat on. It was a pretty average game down there today.
Yeah, definitely. There is an MLC injury update storyline involving Jack Gunston. This was quite strange. Before the game, look at this. We'll replay it for you. He copped a knee from Will Langford and was in a great deal of discomfort. Now, I imagine, Kane, if that happens to you in the warm-up, that could cause some dramas for you. And then we saw this where he looked like he injured his calf. So not a great day for Jack Gunston.
No, he's in the wards. That's the last thing you need in the warm-up is a knock to that area of your body. And then that one was interesting. He came off, had the calf strap, went back on, which was the good news, so they wouldn't have put him back on if there was a risk. And Sean Burgoyne there they're saying an issue with the hamstring, whether it's cramp, whether it's tightness, or he could potentially have strained that hammy for the second time this year, which is a major concern for a player that is 35 and has played a lot of footy, wants to go on next year, and an injury would be the only thing that holds him back.
Now, back on Friday night, this was the match of the round. There is no doubt about it. It was an absolute cracker in front of a huge crowd at Adelaide Oval. And how aggressive were Port Adelaide?
As good as I've seen both sides, to be honest. This was all night. Now, usually you might see this in a big game on the big stage early on. This went on all night. There was niggle, there was big hits time and time again. We could have shown 30 or 40 of these. There was 187 tackles combined in this game between these two sides. As good a finals-like game as I've seen this year. The pressure was there. Viney was at his niggling best. Great to see the Melbourne captain back doing what he does best. Lindsay Thomas was important, putting his body on the line. But it was just a great game of footy. I think the best game I've seen this year, and the ramifications for it mean that Port Adelaide, with the draw that they've got, are a huge chance to not only finish top 4, but to finish top 2.
And you talk about finals previews, and there's a realistic possibility now we could see these two teams match up in a final. And if they did, you couldn't predict it sitting here right now how it would play out.
No, well, Melbourne should have won that game. When you look at it, all the numbers and the way that they played, they had the game on their terms. Massive credit to Port for hanging on. But as Simon Goodwin has already said post-game, I don't think they'd be too concerned about that effort that they brought up. And they've got a pretty nice 3 weeks coming up, the Demons.
Now, just how good is this man, Max Gawn?
Top 3 in the game for me right now. There's been a lot of talk about ruckman. He is far and away the best ruckman in the game, ahead of Brodie Grundy, and he's now a top 3 player in the game. I'd love to see him win the Brownlow medal because some of this stuff that he did, Port Adelaide went after him and he stood up to that. His hit-outs to advantage, his work around the ground. Melbourne smashed Port Adelaide in the clearances on Friday night, and that man there is having one of the great individual seasons we've seen.
Do you really reckon he's going to win the Brownlow? I don't think so.
No, I'd love to see him win the Brownlow.
At least he's in your team of the week, though.
He's in my team of the week again, probably for the 8th or 9th time this year.
All right, let's take a look at the D's and their use of the footy going forward, because this probably cost them.
Well, this was the story of the game. They had 29 more inside 50s than Port Adelaide. This was just in the first quarter that we're showing here, these examples. Just wasteful. I mean, that's not a kick inside 50, but Melksham, he's better than that to use the ball better, straight back to Port Adelaide. Jonas was magnificent for Port, but that's what Port want, the long bomb inside 50. That's what all teams want. It's easy for the spare defender to knock that out of bounds. Jones a better player than that. Westhoff saved that one late in the first quarter, and once again, wasteful opportunities for Melbourne, and they'll review this game on Monday and think, well, there's another one. The result is a close one, and we've butchered the ball like we did on Friday night. So a lot of areas to improve, and you wonder why Jesse Hogan had a quiet night. Well, this ball use is probably a pretty big reason why.
How much credit do you have to give Port Adelaide, though?
I thought they planned magnificently well for Melbourne. They've obviously scouted McDonald and Hogan getting in behind defences, and at every opportunity, Port had that almost goalkeeper or wicket-keeper, as they call it in AFL terms, like Dougal Howard or Tom Jonas, that continually chopped off and intercepted the ball.
All right, let's take a look at the ladder with just the one game to play this round, and the Tigers, of course, still on top there, as we can see, but Port Adelaide into 4th, Melbourne into 5th, Collingwood yet to play, but North Melbourne, as a result of that game at Etihad Stadium, are now into the 8, and the Pies have a chance to rise tomorrow. Essendon now just 2 wins outside the 8 after that upset win in the West.
Yeah, no, it's great, isn't it? At this point in the season, there's probably 10 teams still in it. We don't know which way it's going to go, which we love. And this game tomorrow, big for both clubs. Good news for Carlton during the week with Charlie Curnow signing an extended deal. I thought that was a massive tick for them, but They won't beat Collingwood tomorrow. It's a matter of how much. Hopefully, the Blues put up a good fight against their old rivals.
One more thing before we go. Back down in Tassie. What did you think of this from Alistair Clarkson?
Loved it. Loved every bit of it. That's just mutual respect from a coach just saying, mate, keep at it. You've had a tough year, but didn't need to say anything, just a quick tap. I would have loved that. I would have got a kick out of that if one of the greatest coaches of all time did that to me as a young player. So well done to Clarko.
Everyone's been a bit touchy about everyone touching everyone though this season.
Move on. That's a bit of affection in that. I really like that from Clarko.
That's good. I don't really have a strong opinion.
Better than his guitar playing anyway.
Thank you, Kane. Thank you for watching. This has been the Around So Far.